the current resignation of JLP Member of Parliament Everald Warmington and the dismissal of PNP caretaker Dennis Meadows, we take an in-depth look at political leadership and what are the standards. National Integrity Action's Principal Director and Attorney at Law, Danielle Archer, joins us for that discussion. Good morning,
Good morning. Good morning, nice lady. Good morning, sir. I'm Mr. Neville, if I call you. Good morning, Mr. Neville.
Nice, imitate the nice gentleman.
Nice gentleman.
Yeah, I like that one.
All right, morning, nice gentleman.
You good?
Grateful as always.
Good to see
Thanks
you.
for having me.
It's obviously good news that the leaders jumped in and stopped what was happening. But are you surprised? Because Mr. Warmington been going on and on and on and on.
Well, you have his rap sheet, in law you'd call it the antecedents. So the antecedents go all the way back to 2011.
Yeah. So
Everything
are you surprised that they jumped at this one?
Surprised and pleased. Surprised, and I'm at the point where I think our society is at that point where you get to say enough is enough. You've gotten sufficient chances, and I think the last year, at least since I've been principal director, there were more than a handful of occasions where you've had to say, what are you saying? And somebody said, I'm sorry. And if you have a child, and every time the child is something, them say, sorry, mommy, what you do with them? There comes a point where you have to give them a consequence, and I think that's where the Jamaican society is. We're tired of hearing the apologies without seeing the resultant change in behavior.
One of the things for me, Danielle, is how do we fix the campaign culture? Because I feel like prior to social media, a lot of these pronouncements were done on the campaign trail. A lot of these were part of the electioneering that the masses wanted to hear. Yes, yes. But it never made it to mass media because there was no... Is it time then for... So it's a culture, it's a mindset, it's okay to do it here. Is it time then for a culture shift to happen with our...
Certainly, and I think that's going to happen. And don't let us think that it's just Jamaica, Because if you watch politics right across the globe, things are said on the platform that incite people, whether it's racial or otherwise.
Yeah.
Where we are in Jamaica is that because we're now seeing it, everyone is hearing it. You and I would not have gone out onto the campaign trail to hear Mr. Meadows, but it comes out on social media. What was so riveting about what Mr. Meadows said, though, was the legal and criminal consequences. I don't know if any of you saw Jamaica making its debut on American Greed because of scamming. So if it's such an issue that it's being focused internationally, it becomes a greater issue when you have an aspiring member of parliament saying it's okay. And now we have to become more accountable. So this it's a magic word now. Everybody's saying accountability, accountability, accountability. But accountability without action is just words.
Yeah. Do we do enough checks and balances? I was talking to one of my brethren and I said some of our politicians, no disrespect, but were it in other jurisdiction, couldn't get a vote from anybody because... Say, let's use the United States for whatever reason. I mean, them do so much check before you can end up being...
Top. But if you raise my eyebrow one more time, the United States with Mr. Trump and the things that have been said, let's be real. There are other jurisdictions that the same thing happens. Where I think we want to go, and if it's possible, so this is where I become the idealist, as you know me as Danielle, we need to craft what we want. Stop looking to foreign and craft what we want. What's the standard that we want
and
to
I accept that, but the point of my question was, I understand that Danielle is going to run for an office or a position. We don't check out if Danielle used to kill people.
All right, I take your point. I'll raise you on that. Yeah, so in other words, there's no investigation as to where you're coming from, what's in your background.
Right.
So layman term, a background check to see if you're suitably qualified.
So do we do enough of that? So when I put in Clive, I said, no, this is the man, he's a decent youth, we check him.
Is that what we want, though? Is that what we want, though? Because we do have people who currently have been elected councillors who have charges. We do have in Parliament questions surrounding at least 6 members of Parliament. So it would not just be for the councillors. It would mean that the Jamaica Labour Party and the People's National Party and any other party coming up would have to have that desire to ensure that their candidates, top to bottom, are persons who, the term I'd like to introduce and to continue to use, are of unquestionable
That's
integrity.
My question, though. Do we do enough of that to ensure that they are unquestionable? You hear me ask you,
do we want to do that? Because that now requires the political parties themselves to become responsible for their own membership and leadership.
Don't know that woman, Danielle?
But where you want that, but do they want that? You and I sitting here this morning are going to say that to the rest of the people, we're going to say when the bread and butter issues, who have the money for running election? Let's be real. And that is why when we talk about campaign financing, we focus on what? National elections. There's no campaign financing for local government elections. Nobody knows where the money is coming from. Are we reasonably, as a people, and this is where we as a people now desire and demand that there's legislation that says, look here, there are certain principles that you must have, which is why NIA has consistently said, look for a code of conduct that have those 7 principles and make sure that when you institute this code of conduct, you have consequences. If we have that code of conduct and it's legislated, we have these 7 principles that we are saying are things that you must abide by: selfishness, integrity, openness, honesty. These are things that we're saying we're holding you to, and we have consequences, which mean you step aside. Then we come to the point where you say, that's what we want. The second thing I think we need to have this conversation about, Neville, when we say politicians are under the spotlight, how you remove them. We have to make up noise and say, brother, that the behavior that is unbecoming, me no want my nephew or my son to behave like that. What about a recall? We talk about constitutional reform in a big way. It's like, you want a big meal, but sometimes one sandwich can help you. And the sandwich here would be to say, let us put in something like recall, where when you have a situation like Mr. Warmington, or God forbid you had another member of parliament who had endorsed scamming, you recall them and the people can vote on it and say, we don't want you again because you do not uphold our values.
But so that's the missing link for me, Danielle. That's why I said culture. Do our people understand our responsibility? Because to be fair to Mr. Warmington, when you go down to his constituency and you ask them how is he as a member of parliament, they say he is perfect.
Them love him.
He's good for us. He does everything for us. And I've been to and I've watched on TV. People up there talking about fiscal policy, and the crowd look on them, so.
But we don't understand.
And then when them say, but them figure, and then the crowd say, hey. So do we as a people feed that kind of behavior?
You hear what you say? Feed?
Yes.
We do. So let's start having that conversation. We have several hurdles. What's the society promoting?
Right.
Scamming is important, because scamming is opening a window for us to understand that when our youth are seeing sudden and instant transformation, they can't wait 4 years to go to law school, pay back student loan, and then come out, turn lawyer, and still can't get no work, and have the bills them for pay. Instead, they said that take too long. What they have on their mind is an instantaneous gratification that we have encouraged.
How?
How have we encouraged? Let's look at music. Let's look at how we encourage people that we must have a big car in our driveway. You don't have to work for it. You can't get it, man. It no matter how you get it. Our mindset as a people, say no matter how you get it, so long as you get it.
But you are not going to allow your son or daughter into that.
No.
So it don't matter what them
But then remember, we are a microcosm. So we're going to talk about all these social things. So my son and my daughter, my niece and my nephew go to school. And whilst I may be able to, or they may have the social fabrication to hold them and say, no man, this is not the right thing to do, you do have to recognize, Neville, that we're talking about economic opportunities. What people mention as elementary jobs, I hate to hear the word, sorry, but it's elementary jobs. So even if you wipe a windscreen, you're considered employed because you work 3 times a week. What we need to have is that conversation. You remember when we were growing up, it comes right back to the social culture that we have. What were we taught? How were we taught it? What are the values? Yes, the values and attitudes has had a political connotation, but if we really want to look at our leaders, we must also look at ourselves.
Incredible. Good to see you.
Good to wake her up.
Yeah.
Well, always wake me up, man.
Excellent.
Always.
There's an African proverb that says the ruin of a nation begins in the homes of its people. I've always thought that is parenting.
It's true. It's there. We can't pretend.
Yeah, I've always thought that parenting will make a difference. Yeah. I tried to tell them kids, Mama, I couldn't tell her I go in next door, I had to say, can I go next door?
True that.
And she would say, well, it's 4 o'clock now, be back by 5. And if I'm not back by 5, she come in for me.
Come out for the next 3 months.
Same so.
In my room, in my pyjama.
Same so. Where you going? Where you going?
Yeah. But I still think there is enough good in this country to overcome what's
Oh,
bad
certainly,
in this country.
certainly, and I think that's where we are. I think all the events of last week really said to us that we are at that point where we're standing up now and defining what it is that we want from leadership and what we want for ourselves.
God bless you and your family.
Same to you.
National Integrity Action's Principal Director and Attorney at Law, Danielle Archer.
Coming up, is the constitutional reform falling apart? That's after the break.
Miserable Clyde, I love you, Missy.
Oh my gosh. Them wake up, Clyde.
love you, Missy.
Them wake up, Daniel. Wake up, Clyde.
We're not keeping for that one. We can keep Clyde company, you know.
Oh my God.